Check, check. All right. So just because this is only the second class and we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about basic Unreal Engine stuff, I am just going to start from the beginning and just kind of walk through as if I started a brand new project. So for those of you that are maybe newer to Unreal and you don't know all this stuff in your sleep, then maybe this is important to follow along with. So I'm just going to start a completely new project in Unreal. Is it better if I turn the lights off? So one person's like, no, keep them on. So I get a lot of glare though. All right, so Unreal Engine, new project. These are all templates, so it doesn't really matter which one we pick. But usually I pick the ones that are the fastest loading because I want to get in and working right away. So even though I'm not making a game, I still usually go to games and blank. We are making film and video stuff, but I find that unless you're using these, it's not worth the wait that it takes for these ones to load. These presets just have different plugins installed already, things that they think that you will use when you're using MDisplay, things that they think you'll use when you're doing virtual production. Just because we pick the game one and blank doesn't mean that we can't turn on all the plugins for video and stuff. I just find these take forever to load for some reason. I don't know why. Am I crazy? Does anybody else know what I'm talking about? No? That's fine. That's usually the case. All right, so I'm just going to pick a blank project and I'll just call it something, film, and we'll let it load. Brand new project. Not even doing starter content. So Unreal Engine loads pretty quick, but it does sometimes pause at certain values, like 45%, 75%, 90%. Don't freak out. Just wait longer. You'll almost always be okay. Okay, Unreal Engine. So first things first, I want to turn on a couple plugins that we're going to use. So to turn on plugins, just go to Settings, Plugins. Yes, I am. Look at that. Check, check. Oh, it pauses when I zoom in. Check, check, check. We are recording. Thank you. You guys are great. You never let me forget. What was I saying? Settings, plugins. These are not third-party plugins or anything like this. These are just built-in plugins that aren't turned on for most people because they're not using them. Which ones do we want to turn on? Let's turn on movie. Let's see if movie render queue is on. Movie render queue. Oh, it's not. It might be on for you depending on which preset you picked. Movie render queue. And when you turn on plugins in Unreal, no matter what they are, they tell you you need to restart. That's fine. We will restart, but we're going to turn on a couple of plugins. So let's just restart after we've turned all of them on. Okay. I'm going to turn on Movie Render Queue. I'm also going to turn on the ProRes plugin so I can render out ProRes. I'm also going to turn on the DNX HR plugin. DNX HR is sort of like the non-Apple ProRes, although ProRes works fine on PCs these days, so I always just use ProRes anyways, I'm incredibly anti-Apple, but ProRes is great. So I turn on those three plugins, and now I'm going to restart the editor. If I'm going too fast at any point, please tell me, and I'll slow down. So I downloaded these 2 zip files. I'll show you what they are. This is an amazing folder. I guess because I didn't unzip it, I can't see them yet. Let's go to the unzipped folder. Look, it's an amazing folder of PNGs of the Unreal Engine logo animating. This is going to be our video texture hello world, I guess you could call it. Notice there's also another folder in here called proxy. Everybody ever used proxy footage in video editing before? No? Okay. Proxy footage in video editing is essentially lower resolution footage so that your computer doesn't explode while you're trying to edit on the timeline in Premiere or Resolve. So if you go out and your main master footage is, I don't know, 8K footage shot on an awesome Red camera, I don't know, can your little MacBook Pro edit that in real time? It might be pretty stuttery, right? So instead, what we can do is we make proxies, which are lower resolution versions of that 8K footage. We make all of our edits, we add all of our effects, and then when we relink it at the end, it relinks to the 8K footage and then renders out the final video, essentially in a nutshell with video editing. Similar sort of thing with video in Unreal. Playing back media textures in Unreal Engine is computationally intense. So if your computer, if you find that you can't hit the play button in Sequencer in Unreal and have your video play, as you'll see in like 15 minutes when we get there, if it's struggling and it can't buffer the entire thing, maybe you need to make a lower resolution copy, put it in another folder. You don't have to call it proxy, but it is proxy footage, so you might as well call it proxy. All it is, it's literally low resolution. Not that these are high resolution at all. This is only 720p shots, 1280 by 720. I think the proxy footage I made was not even that much smaller, 640 by 360, so half the size. But just something to keep in mind as we work with video files, whether it's an Unreal Engine logo or beautiful footage that you shot of your amazing talent acting on a green screen, it's the same idea. If your computer can't play it back, render out a lower resolution version. At least then you have smooth playback in Unreal. You can always replace it with the higher quality stuff when you're ready to render. Okay? Does that make sense? It's a pretty mission critical thing because if you can't play it back on your computer, it's going to be practically impossible for you to design something lovely. The other images I gave you were of Miley riding her lovely cat, Shanti, fist pumping. You know, it's an image sequence. A series of PNGs. Why PNGs? Because this actually has transparency. The other one, I think, is PNGs too, but it could be JPEGs. Moving forward in this class, we probably will stop using file formats like JPEGs and PNGs. We'll try to start using EXR files. EXR files are lossless files that are used in compositing. They're really great quality, and also you can have layers in them as well, which is pretty cool. But for our tests right now, traditional image files are absolutely fine. All right, so point is I have 2 folders of images, and we're going to bring them into Unreal. Okay. So let's do that. We don't need to drag the files in, folks. Don't do that. That's an incredibly bad idea. Do not select all JPEGs, drag into the content browser. No, do not do that. Bad, bad, bad. What we want to do is we're going to create what's called an image media source file. It's essentially a file that says, this is an image sequence. This is where these files live on this hard drive. Recognize this Unreal. So you can click on the big green add button in the content browser, or right click in the content browser, whatever you want to do. We're going to go down to media, and we're going to go to image media source. IMS even says media source for EXR images. EXR files are, it's an image sequence files. They are quite large in file size compared to something like a JPEG. But you wouldn't quite think that this would be true. But for those of you that maybe are a little bit more knowledgeable about video editing, you should know that MP4 files, which are compressed files, and JPEG files, which are compressed files, are a lot harder for the computer to play than an uncompressed file. Because the computer has to uncompress that JPEG in real time, has to uncompress that MP4 in real time, which is maybe why you might get slow playback even in Premiere of an MP4 if you're editing it. Anyways, we'll get there eventually. Image media source. I'm going to go ahead and click one of those. What do we want to call it? Naming convention, style guide. You call it whatever you want, but I usually call it IMS for image media source. And then this is going to be the Unreal Engine logo first, so I'm just going to put UE4. You know, whatever makes sense for your content. Then we want to double click it and open it up. Really, the only thing that we need to do here is go down here and set the sequence path for the image sequence. So click the little 3 dots and browse to wherever you unzipped those files. Or we're doing the logo one first, if you're following along. I don't need the proxy footage because my computer's big and bad. You only need to select the first one because it will recognize it as an image sequence, just like any video software that you used. You don't need to select all of them. Open. It will seem like nothing happened. That's okay. So Unreal Engine in the last, I think they started doing this not even with 5, but I think 5.1. I think. Regardless, it's recent. They kind of changed the way that you do video importing a little bit. The way that we do it now, or suggested you do it now, is with media plates. It even has a special section in the Place Actors window. That little play button icon thing, media plate. You click that, there it is, media plate. This is an actor that is assigned a mesh, a flat plane, like a TV screen, that you can drag into your world. So just left click, hold, and drag it into your world somewhere. It's going to be black because we haven't assigned it a video yet. Maybe move it a little bit closer or drive your camera closer to it, whatever you want to do. I don't know, maybe I'll just put this at 0, 0, 0 and drive my camera over to it. Not 0, 0, 0 because it's in the floor. Oh no. Now you might notice that the aspect ratio of this is 1, 1, right? Whereas the aspect ratio of my Unreal Engine logo here, 16:9, right? Whoa, why'd that crash? 16:9. That's okay. The cool thing about this new media plate is it's adaptive. The mesh is adaptive, so it stretches to the aspect ratio of the footage that it inherited, which is pretty neat. It saves you an extra step. You used to have to put a plane into the world, make sure it was the right aspect ratio by setting the scale, or making all your videos square and putting buffers on them so that they didn't get stretched when you put them on a square plane. It's a little bit more simplified now. Question?
So did you, I'm trying to do this thing. So did you drag and drop it on there? Or did you select it with
Yep.
the media plate? You pull that one out, and then did you do anything with your content browser?
Did nothing with my content browser. I'm just dragging them in. Should I do more? Boom. Yep, just dragged it in. Honestly, this is new for me too. I only decided in the last 48 hours that this is how I was going to show this. I usually still like to stick with the old way, but I tried it and I was like, well, I think I feel comfortable with this now. And I didn't see any downsides, so we'll move forward with this. I used to be concerned with it because I didn't think it was going to render properly, but it seems to be okay. Anyways, okay, cool. A black non-video playing surface here. Now it's important to remember that video footage is flat. This is we're not shooting volumetric video here. We have the capabilities in this building to shoot volumetric video, but this is not the class to do that in. Had it working, comes into Unreal. They're even streaming it to the LED wall the other day. But remember, your video footage is flat, so it only really works if the camera is face on with it, right? In our cases, you can get away with little pans, you can get away with maybe tilting a little bit, but if you go crazy, the illusion gets lost. Makes sense, right? Because it's just a flat piece of paper. When we talk about camera tracking in the future class, that solves this problem. Because the video will always be face on with the camera, but anywhere the camera moves in Unreal, the camera moved in the real world, so everything syncs up. But we're a long way from that right now. All right. I'm going to try something real quick. No, you can't do that. I guess you can just drag the image media source in. I did not know that. I don't know if it will work. Maybe it will. Anyways, let's not break things. I have a tendency to get off track and break things. All right, so we're set up there. To get video to play in Unreal, well, there's two types of video in Unreal. You could import an MP4 into Unreal and have it play. When character walks up the thing, trigger the video to play. That's not really what this class is about. This class is about putting high quality video shot usually on green screen or in the real world, importing that into Unreal, and then compositing it with some sort of CGI elements, right? When we render that out from Unreal, we need to render every single frame high quality. MP4s and other video files will not work for this process. We need to use image sequences, which we are, which is what this is. A sequence of still pictures to make a video file. We need to use image sequences because that's how we keep our timeline synced. The way that Unreal Engine works is that it has a separate clock for video footage, which will play. And when we click render, that video will start playing. But depending on how fast our computer is and how complicated the world is that you built for it, it might take longer than real time to render out the rest of that footage for the background. So what happens is they get out of sync. So your video will end up looking like a flipbook or a very slow animated GIF where the background will be perfectly smooth. When we render with image sequences like we are doing now, or we imported one at least, it stays synced up. So every frame on Sequencer, which is the timeline in Unreal, the animated timeline in Unreal, every frame on Sequencer corresponds with a frame of video. So it stays synced up. Just take my word for it. It works. So now we need to create a sequence for this world. A level sequence. Half dozen different ways to do the same thing in Unreal, but I'm going to go up here to the little clackboard icon and click add level sequence. We don't need multiple shots, so the standard add level sequence is fine. It's going to ask you where you want to save it. You know, maybe in the future you might want to create a folder for your level sequences. For today, it's fine if I'm just dumping it all into one folder. ls underscore, I don't know, what do I want to call this? Logo, I suppose, for the Unreal Engine logo. Doesn't really matter what you call it. Now we have an empty timeline. If you've never used Sequencer in Unreal before, it functions like any timeline you've ever used before in any other sort of software. Premiere, Resolve, After Effects, Final Cut. I don't know about Touch Designer, but any timeline, it functions the same way. Your timeline is however long you want it to be. You can put media in it, which kind of are like, I guess you could think of them as layers, but they're not really layers over here. And we could add keyframes to things to control parameters like position, rotation. What's the speed of the video? When does the video start? You know, tons of things. Any parameter in Unreal can be keyframed pretty much. I'm not going to spend a ton of time showing you how to animate other things in Sequencer right now. That's kind of an Unreal Engine 101 thing. Again, we're kind of moving a little faster this semester, so if there is a demand to do more basic things, please let me know, because I don't know if nobody says anything. All right, I'm just going forward. All right, so we have Sequencer open here. Now I'm going to add the media to it. So I'm going to click on the green button over here to the left in Sequencer. The track button. This is where we can add all sorts of tracks. All sorts of different types of tracks. Our main concern is with the one on the bottom here called a media track. Click it. Media track. We added this media track to our Sequencer. We haven't attached it to anything yet, so nothing's happening. It's not very exciting yet. I'm going to click the plus button on this media track, and it's going to give me a flyout menu that says media source or media plate. I'm going to throw caution to the wind here since this is the new way to do it, and I'm going to say media plate. Would you like to disable autoplay on the media play actor? Yes, of course. It's recommended. Duh. What happened? It looks like it worked. Scrub that timeline. Ta-da! It's inverted, but that's okay. I'll just rotate this plane the other way. Dun, 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 dun. Beautiful, right? Hell yeah. We did it. Very exciting. If you can do this, you can probably do about 33% of this class already. This is the most important thing on some level. Let me click the loop button really quick and show you something else. Some other basic Sequencer stuff. So see the green here? This is similar to like if you've done the timeline in After Effects before, you know how it buffers with green above the timeline. Mine is playing back at its proper 30 frames a second right now. If yours is lagging right now, even with this very tiny image, oh, your computer's kind of terrible. And that's a bummer. You can still make it work. Maybe we just do lower resolution footage, but this is not that high resolution footage to begin with. Okay? But this could give you a good idea of maybe what to expect. What size video files will we usually work with in here? I mean, at least 1080p, preferably 4K, but I think we can do most of what we need to do with the 1080p footage, and then we'll do the high resolution comp in post-production, unless you just want to do it all in Unreal. But if you have this playing and you're following along, that's great. Good to go. The great thing about the new media plate is it just works with a couple clicks. We used to have to right-click on this and assign a media texture and a media player. It was very annoying, to say the least. All right. Let's just walk through the whole process with this first video. We're not even build a world yet. We'll just make sure that we can have the pipeline locked down. Okay, I want to render this out now. So I'm going to intentionally screw up here and show you what happens if you don't do something. But I'm not going to tell you what it is. Maybe the smart ones of you already know what it is. So I'm going to render this out by clicking the clackboard here, the slate. And since we turned on the movie render queue plugin, we have the movie render queue. If this doesn't pop up for you, or you don't have both of these options when you click on the little dots right there, you just have the legacy one, movie scene capture, it's because you didn't turn on the movie render queue plugin yet in here. Not a big deal, just go turn it on. Thought we turned it on already. Okay. The movie render queue it's not really new anymore. It became official and out of beta in Unreal Engine 4.26. So maybe like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago? Question? Oh, what? Are you using Unreal Engine? Is anybody else having this problem? Do not be embarrassed. Please tell me, because believe it or not, yesterday you found it? All right, typo. Yesterday I was teaching a very basic Unreal Engine class, and we were just adding marketplace assets to our worlds. And I was like, yeah, get the marketplace asset and click add to project, and then you'll find your project and you click the button, you add it, and it will add it. And I thought everything was going pretty easy because that's pretty basic stuff. And then like one person raised their hand and they're like, teacher, in the Epic launcher, I don't see my project. It's not here. I was like, what? What are you talking about? You sure you Epic launcher, right? And then somebody else raised their hand. They're like, I don't see it either. And somebody else raised their hand. 50% of the class raised their hands. I was like, oh, damn, what did I do? Oh, it was a disaster. It was some big fuck up. We're dealing with it. It's not my fault. It's because we're using very IT system controlled Macintoshes at this other school, and we have to do like this really weird installation of the Unreal Engine. That's ridiculous. Anyways, the point is, don't be embarrassed. Raise your hand. Ask questions if you can't find something, because otherwise I don't know, and I just keep plowing on. Anyways, told you I go on tangents. Movie render queue. This is a really robust, powerful new system as of 4.26. It's the latest, greatest way to render films out of Unreal Engine. When I say films, I mean cinematics from games or movies like we're going to make in this class. This is how we render out from the timeline in Unreal. But I thought you said Unreal Engine was real time. Yeah, but we still have to render it out to make a video file, or in our case, an image sequence file, or if you're doing ProRes, I guess a video file, an MOV file. So here I have my level sequence. This just got added automatically when I clicked the slate button from my sequencer. It's just named the same thing as my level sequences. I'm gonna click what's currently called unsaved config. This is just, you could save presets, but I haven't set a preset yet. I'm going to click this word right here, unsaved config. And this is where we can set all sorts of settings, like do we want to render out EXR files? Do we want to render out bitmaps? Do we want to render out ProRes? Do we want to do this extra high resolution thing? Do we just want to render out deferred rendering, lighting only? All this sort of very important stuff, but less important for us right now. The only thing that I'm concerned with right now is just picking the ProRes option because I like ProRes. I know, even though I'm a PC guy, I like ProRes. So I don't want to render out JPEGs too. You can render out simultaneous export formats. So I'm just going to click the toggle off on JPEGs. Yours might be off already, I don't know. And then this is nothing super important. So if I click on ProRes, I'm not going to render out ProRes 444 for XQ. That's unnecessary. I'll render it out. Oh, you know what? This is very not important. ProRes proxy. In the future, in here, we will render out EXR files, but not today. Not today. ProRes only for right now. Other settings, we don't need to worry about anything like this right now. In the future, we will talk about stencil layers, which will allow us to separate out foregrounds and backgrounds. Not right now. Except, where do you want it to save to? By default, it saved it into the saved folder in your project directory that you created when you first created this project. You can change that to anything if you want. Do you believe that there was a time in the not so distant past, maybe like 6 years ago, where you could only render into this folder? It's crazy. Times change. That's fine. I'm just going to render it into that folder. Whatever. Render, local. We don't have a render farm, so we're rendering local. One or more jobs in the queue has an unsaved map. Uh-oh, you should probably save. That's a good point, Unreal. I'm going to save. Always save. And my suggestion for those of you that are newer to Unreal, save using save all. There is a difference between save current level and save all. Save current level is just saving the level and the position of the objects that you put into the level. If you import a bunch of new things, like we just created that image media source file, if I imported a bunch of meshes or sound files or a bunch of stuff, and I just click save current level, and then my computer crashed, I would lose all that stuff that I imported because I never saved that stuff by clicking save all. Seems kind of silly to talk about, but it is maybe the most important thing in this entire journey with Unreal. It's why on the content browser, there's a big save all button on the content browser. Click that thing. And check this out. This is actually a great demonstration. Thank you, Unreal. See this little asterisk right here on my file? That means it's not saved yet. So if I broke this computer in half right now, I would have to re-import that file. Well, I guess on a new computer too, but you know, if my computer crashed, that file wouldn't be saved. And check it out, it still shouldn't be saved if I say save current level. What do I want to call this level? I don't know, L, I guess just logo. Look, I saved the level. It even created a new level file for me, but it still didn't save the new level sequence until I click save all. Save all. What do you want to save? Well, the only file I haven't saved yet is my level sequence logo file. Save. Check it out. The asterisk is gone. All is well in the world. We are saved. We are perfectly saved. All right, that's great that it prompts you to save. That's really clever. Epic. All right, let's go back to media render queue and let's try to render again. Render. No, I saved this. What are you talking about? What? Oh no, what's going on? One more job in the queue has an unsaved map as their target map. Maps must be saved at least once before rendering. It is saved. Maybe I'll just force save. That's strange. Is anybody else getting that error? That's strange. Does anybody else have any idea why? Interesting. Maybe I'll just save it as something new. I told you, as a live demo, there's bound to be unexpected problems. You guys think I don't even know how to save in Unreal now, you know? Do all this other shit, but you don't know how to save. Crazy. One more jobs in the queue is an unsaved map. What does that mean? Save queue? I don't really want to save the queue. You don't have to save the queue, but I must have somehow set it as a new preview, which is strange. And now it's not rendering, which is also strange. Yeah, this is not a complex thing to render. This should be done already. Well, you know what? Time to blow it up. Sorry, Unreal. Better luck next time. Level, logo. Go back to our sequence. Our video plays. Clackboard. Render. Remember, I told you I was going to do something wrong. This is unexpected, however. Let's just give my computer a minute. Not because I'm recording. It's fine. Is there anybody rendering? You want to come up and teach the class? That's strange. So you didn't get that error? Or did you do something different? Oh, okay. Well, now it's rendering. I think the computer just freaked out for a second. Well, I don't know if you saw when it was rendering. I didn't do a bunch of stuff in between that. All I did was click the render button, and it took forever. And then all of a sudden, it rendered really quickly. Not sure why it took the long pause. It shouldn't do that, but it rendered. A pro tip, a really quick way to get to your rendered directory is just to click the link right here, and it should open it right up. Oh, it also rendered out all the JPEGs. That's fine, though. But this is the problem that I want. Oh, it didn't render out ProRes at all. I must have reset all my settings. All right, let's try that again. No JPEG. ProRes proxy, accept, render. There we go. Check it out. That doesn't look like the angle that I had my camera at, right? What's the deal? Well, first off, I don't have any camera in my scene at all. So that's a big problem. So why don't we make one? So the video that got made just right now, delete all these other JPEGs real quick. Video that got made, it's beautiful. It's 150 frames of just masterpiece. Look at that. Side view landscape. I call it below the horizon because you can see below the horizon. Get it? Just made that up. So if you ever, I'm not doing this just because I'm a goofball. This is actually an instructive lesson. If you ever spend a lot of time setting things up and then you hit record and you look at your recording and it looks something like this, or it's just the camera's in the weird place of the world, it's either two things. You don't have a camera, or also you didn't make a camera cut track in Sequencer for that camera. Two things. So first off, let's make a camera. So a couple different ways to make cameras in Unreal. You can click the little slate icon here, and then there's Scene Camera Actor. Scene Camera Actor is what we're using. You just drag that into your world. You can also click the little camera icon in Sequencer right there to the left of the slate. Half dozen different ways to do the same thing, right? I'm just going to drag it in. And then when you have cameras clicked on, you see a little preview of them in the bottom right here. If I unclick this camera, the preview disappears. So a pro tip here is to click the little push pin icon right there. And that will make that camera view stick to the screen no matter if you have the camera clicked on or not. It's just nice to allow you to compose. There's also another way for you to compose. You could right-click on the camera and go to Pilot Scene Camera Actor. That will make you the camera. Whoa, I'm really disoriented here. Where is everything? Actually, I don't have any stuff in my world, and I have a plane that has no back to it, so I don't even know where I'm at. That's all right. Maybe don't pilot right now. If you ever get lost in Unreal, a keyboard shortcut to know is the F key on your keyboard. F for focus. So if you click on something, like I'm clicked on the image media source in Unreal in my outliner right now, and I hit F, it should take me right to it. If you select on the skybox in the sky and you hit F, disaster. Now you have to spend a million years dragging yourself back into your world. Or not. Or you can just find something in your world and double click it in the outliner and it will take you right back to it. Anyways, where'd my camera go? I think I drove it around. I'm not sure why it flew away so far. So maybe it's up there. Oh, there it is. Look at that. David Silhana, guys, everybody. Great guy. Yeah, my camera's up there. I'm just going to pull it down. And now I'm just going to kind of arrange my camera. I'm not making anything amazing here. I'm just proof of concept. This is how we get video recording out of Unreal. Great. So this is what it looks like. I can also click on perspective up here on the top of my viewport. And if I go to Scene Camera Actor, which happens to be what this camera is called, if I had multiple cameras, they would be listed here. This will show me the viewport instead of through the perspective camera, I will look through Scene Camera Actor, which is what the name of this thing is. If we had more, that would be Scene Camera Actor 1, 2, 3, or whatever you name them if you rename them. Look at that. Now I'm viewing through my camera. It even says right there, Pilot Actor, Scene Camera Actor. So I'm actually piloting the camera. So anywhere I move, like if I move like this, and then I eject, and I pull back, my camera is now not pointed at that anymore. If I went back into the camera by piloting it, and I look back at my screen, and then I eject, now my camera is pointed back at my screen. It's a really easy thing to get confused with. Am I piloting the camera? Am I not? Just double check by looking at, usually says right here, Pilot Actor, Scene Camera Actor. Okay, cool. So now I have a camera in my world that I can render from. If I went and rendered this out again, it still would be messed up. Oh no. I'm backwards. That's all right. I'll just flip you around. So what I need to do next is I need to tell Sequencer that I have a camera. The way you tell Sequencer you have anything is just by dragging it in. Whether that's a mesh or a character that you're putting animation on in Sequencer. In my case, in your case, we're bringing in a camera. So I'm going to drag the camera from my outliner all the way into my Sequencer and just drop it here. Boop. Look at that. Why is it backwards again? Oh, it's not. Okay. Never mind. So now I'm looking through a camera and also playing my video. Great. Also, check it out what got created. Not only did we add a new track called Scene Camera Actor, which has all this other sort of stuff in here, like controlling the transformation, where's it located, maybe we want to animate it. We're also controlling the focus, focal length, aperture. Honestly, we could keyframe all of these things in the details panel. Check it out. Things like sensor height and width, focal length, anything that has this little key icon next to it in the details panel, not just for cameras, but for anything in Unreal, can be keyframed in Sequencer. Another thing that got created, which is the thing that will cause mistakes a lot of times. Oh no, why does my render not look like it does in Unreal, in the viewport? Why does my ProRes file not look like when I scrub in Sequencer? It's probably because you don't have a camera cut track. Camera cut track, you could think of it as a director track in Unreal. The director track in software terms, or I guess in hardware terms, if you're in like a production van, like a live production, the director track, or the camera cut track in this case, it tells which cameras to currently be playing or broadcasting out to television. I like to use the analogy of like a baseball game or something, right? Or a basketball game. At a sporting event, there's lots of cameras around, right? The basket, close-up basket to see if anybody's going to do a slam dunk. On the sideline to get that shot. Maybe like a traveling camera that somebody's moving around to get audience shots. A wide shot to show the entire court. Maybe other wide shots. There's a bunch of different cameras that are recording simultaneously. You can have any number of cameras in your Unreal Engine level as you want. The camera cut track, or the director track as it's also known, is the track that tells which camera to play when. If you only have one camera, that's absolutely fine. That's going to be the case for you 95% of the time. But it's still essential that you have a camera cut track, even if you only have one camera. So the camera cut track is saying, this is the camera, Cin Camera Actor, which is the name of it down here. If I added another camera, wow, this is a terrible naming convention here. Cin Camera Actor, and now Cin Cam, what? The name did like the same thing. Let's call this something else. Rename. Camera 2, great name. Now in the camera cut track, I clicked cameras, and now I could add camera 2. If I had another camera, I could add camera 3. And I could start to add more cuts to my director track. So I could cut over here, cut over there, cut over there. Some people like to use one camera for everything and just warp the camera around. Other people like to set up cameras and have it cut between shots. Both the ways kind of achieve the same thing. There are some downsides of just using one camera if you're dramatically moving around the level. Sometimes you get like warping or ghosting, even if it's just one frame where the camera moves from here to over here. But that's a discussion for another day. You need a camera cut track. It's also important to note with cameras that you click on the little camera icon to look through that camera. See the little camera icon right there? If I click on this, now my viewport, it shows I'm looking through that camera. If I unclick it, it's the same as clicking the eject button up here. Now I'm using my perspective camera. See, it says perspective right there. If I click on the camera icon again, now I'm looking through that camera. If you want to know what's going to render out when you click render, click on the camera icon for the camera cut track. In our case, it's going to be exactly the same as clicking on just the camera for the camera, because we only have one of them. But this is what it should look like when we render out. Very exciting, right? But still mission critical things that we need to know. Maybe let's make this a little bit more exciting. We're going to add a little dolly out to the camera. Very exciting. For those of you that are more well versed with Unreal, this should be a refresher. So I'm going to go and set my timeline at 0 frames just by moving around the scrubber bar. Oops. The timeline indicator. You can also use the buttons down at the bottom to jump. Functions the same as any timeline you've ever used before. In Cin Camera Actor, in Transform, I'm going to click transform, and I'm going to click location, and I'm going to add a keyframe for location right here. You can add keyframes for individual axes of translation, or you can just click location. It will add for all three. I'm going to just click location keyframe, and it adds for all three. Okay, I just clicked here on location. So this is my starting point for my camera. At frame 0, as it says, frame 0, my camera is located right here. Negative 189x, 1.8y, and 39z, which looks like this. I'm going to scrub to the end here. Oops, not the last frame. I'm going to scrub to the end here. And you could pilot the camera by going back into it. If I click the camera, now I'm piloting it. I could drag myself out a little bit, do a little dolly out. And then I can click the keyframe button again for location transform. Now we added the keyframe over there. Now I can just slide between and get a little very exciting Academy Award winning animation and camera movement. Now remember what I said earlier, camera movement with no tracking is a risk. Doing a simple dolly out like this is fine. But if you do any camera moves that really start to skew with the perspective of the video, like if I'm filming Kiani right here with my camera, beautiful, and then I make a camera movement where I stand up, I'm still looking at you. I can see on top of your head now, because obviously the perspective is from up here. Now if I go back down here, I can't see on top of your head anymore. If I move over here, then the people in the background move, right? Keep in mind all those perspective shifts. If you make too much dramatic of a camera movement with just essentially placing video on a flat plane in a world, it's all going to fall apart. Just keep that in mind. Yes, I know students always want to break the rules once they know the rules. So if you want it to look like a flat plane, you can. You're wrong, but you can do it. Eventually, when we get into tracking, the video won't move, or the video won't be placed in the world anymore like it is now, like a mesh. The video will actually be stuck to our camera, like the face of the camera. And wherever the camera goes, the video will come with it. This is a lot different of approach. Okay, we're good. We got some simple camera movement here. We got our video footage playing. I'm going to click back on the slate or the clapboard, go back to my movie render queue. I think everything else is good. ProRes still, that's cool, that's cool. We'll just overwrite it. Click render again. Look at that. Correct camera view, animation playing. This render takes as long as it needs to render. Not that this is very difficult of a scene at all, but once we start adding a bunch of crap to our scene, that might take a little while to render because it's processing out the frames, especially if we're doing something really high resolution. I don't even know what resolution I set to this to. I guess the default, 1920 by 1080. You know what, we'll just go crazy. Let's do 3840 by 2160. Let's see how much slower it is to render. Not that much slower. A little bit slower. You can actually see the slowdown in the video. I worked on a project earlier this year where we were trying to render out, actually with the guy that peeked his head in here, David, we were trying to render out 16K wide renders from Unreal and failing miserably on our individual 4090 graphics cards. Let's check out if video rendered. Oh yeah, look at that. You can clap, I know, that's beautiful. So, we imported video into Unreal. We added a camera. We did a little itty bitty animation to the camera, dolly out. We rendered that out, had it all put together back into a ProRes file. This is this is not even the simple thing that we just did. This is kind of the pipeline that we will use to bring videos into Unreal, to render them out from Unreal. In the future, we are going to talk about making foregrounds, backgrounds, rendering them out as separate pieces so that we can put them back together in After Effects or Fusion or Nuke. But if you wanted to composite everything in Unreal right now, it's done. Given this is a very lame composite, I'm allowed to say that because I made it. It's called Unreal Engine logo on landscape default background. There's no foreground or anything. Here, you want a foreground? All right, well, look at that. Foreground. Oh no, it disappeared. Foreground. Oh no, it disappeared again. Ooh, look at that. Now the cube goes out of focus. Look at that. That's a winner right there. Yes, it's a very lame world, but the building blocks in the pipeline is the essential thing that I want to go over right now. Okay? We only have a couple minutes left, so maybe I'll just talk about the assignment first, and then I'll do a speed run with the more fun footage, since I talked too long. Your assignment, I guess you don't really have a choice. I was going to say, should you choose to accept it, but you don't have a choice. You need to use Sequencer, add a camera, and a media source. So add a video to Unreal like we just did. Hopefully a little bit more interesting than the Unreal Engine logo. Try to make a world with the video footage, which is what I'm going to try to do after this. Apply the media texture to, you don't really need to apply it to a mesh, you just need to bring it in as a media plate. Place the media plate in the environment and build a world around it, essentially, and render it out. And upload it somewhere, put that on your Notion, post the link to Discord. Pretty straightforward, right? Try to do things like camera movement. Maybe if you're feeling ambitious, you want to do multiple cameras, go for it. You know, it's a pretty simple exercise, so maybe try to up the difficulty level a little bit. I just need to make sure that everybody can do this mission critical technical challenge. Any questions before I switch gears really quick? Multiple camera tutorials. Not really. It's really just doing the single camera tutorial multiple times. To be honest, kind of is. I guess if you looked up tutorials that dealt with what are called shots in Unreal, that could be the case, or tutorials that specifically had to do with the camera cut track, because then this thing would get split in half. So I'm saying, so like till frame 60, it's playing from this camera. Then if I had another camera, I would need to add it in the camera cuts, and that would be here. That sort. It's pretty straightforward though. If you can do one, you can do multiples. I think the hard thing about the multiples is just structuring a narrative and making something interesting. Okay. Any other questions about this? It's pretty simple. All right. Let's see what sort of damage I can do in 10 minutes. Whew. All right. I'm going to do it from scratch. Basic. Or actually, you know what? Ooh, I'll really do it from scratch. Just throwing caution to the wind here. Empty level. So much possibility. Ooh, I'm scared. All right, I'm going to create a new image media source. Image media source, and call this Shanti because that's the name of the cat. Double click it, set the sequence path. I'm just doing a speed run right now. But you know what? It's on YouTube. It's going to be on YouTube, so you can slow it down and pause it. All right, I added the track there. If you know the frame rate of your footage, you can always set it here. This is 30 frames a second. Okay, now I need to create a media plate and drag it into my black world, which I can't see anything. That's all right though, because you know what? I'm going to start to import some assets. Epic Launcher. Let's see what sort of things I can find. I already have a bunch of stuff in my vault because I like to buy all the things. Ultra Dynamic Sky, that might take a little bit to download. Oh no, we're running out of time. Let's just type in Sky. I didn't plan this, so I'm doing this live. All right, Ultra Dynamic Sky. No, Good Sky. Let's do Good Sky. Sometimes your project might not pop up here. This is a good thing to know, especially the newer Unreal people. If your project doesn't pop up here, don't panic. Click Show All Projects, and then it will probably show up here. That only happens because that asset was made and uploaded by the developer to the marketplace with an older version of Unreal. Okay? 99 times out of 100, that's not a problem. Add to project. Oh no, 12 megabytes. Let's do, hopefully NYU's fast internet. Add to project. Okay, there it is. Let's add this into our world. What is this? Sunrise. I don't even know how to use this asset. Uh-oh. Enable time of day. Maybe this is how I change the time of day. Ooh, look at that. It is. I haven't used this asset in a long time. That's good documentation right there. Right? So how can I don't know how I hide this thing though. Maybe we just make that part of our world. Sunrise in the east. That's cool. Or maybe I'll just drive over here and move my stuff over here instead. Yeah, it probably is, but you know, I have 8 minutes, so bounds of reason. Local instead of worlds. Okay, cool. Looks like it's going to be up in the sky. You know what? I will create a camera now. Where's the camera? Oh boy, that's way far away. You know what? I'm just going to copy the location of this plane and paste it on the camera, because then they will be in the same spot. Camera in place. Camera pulled back. Oh, beautiful. Look at that angle. Beautiful. Unclick snapping. Good enough for right now. You know what? We need a light in this world. That's why my camera looks weird right now. Let's add a directional light. That's good. Let's add a sequence, add level sequence, ls_Shanti for the cat's name. Add a track for media track. Click the plus, media plate. It's right there, Shanti. Disable, yes, that's good. All right, we have it. It's now playing, although she's backwards. Close enough. Let's look through the camera. Cool, playing up in the sky, looking great, looking really great. Let's add the camera to sequencer. Let's add a camera cut track got created, fantastic. It's pretty lame right now, so let's add some more stuff. There's nothing else in this pack that's interesting, but we got to add some clouds. So, you know what? I know I have this thing called low poly something something. I'm going to add this. See, this is no compatible user projects because this asset was made with Unreal Engine 4.18, I think. Is this right? Film? I think that's my project. Yeah, it is. Yeah, 4.18 this asset was made with. But you know what? It's still going to work fine because it's just meshes. Luckily, I already had it downloaded for some reason. Okay, good, good. Tropical Island. You know what? There's some clouds in here. Whoa, that's a big cloud. It's an enormous cloud. I'm going to unclick from here, go direction. Also, the shadows are all messed up because the sun's pointing the wrong direction. That's all right. I should have lined this up on a single axis because it's really hard to do at a diagonal. That's all right. Drag out some clouds. Pro tip, you can hold down Alt while dragging with left click on an asset to duplicate them, sort of like duplicating a layer in Unreal, or not Unreal, Photoshop. Big difference. Let's take the sun and let's rotate it so we're not getting such crazy shadows. Good enough. Let's look through the camera. Ooh, stuff's starting to happen. Let's put this one way back here. I don't really like those dark shadows underneath that cloud, but that's okay. We'll work around it. This one's also in the background, but you know what? I'm going to move it up into the foreground. But to do that, I'm going to have to shift gears. It's really easy to accidentally click transparent. I need to scale this down. Scale down. Move it. Things are happening. Still not the most interesting thing I've ever made, but you know, it's gonna work. If we add a little bit of camera movement on there really quick, this will show us the parallax shift. Camera, pull it out a little bit. Add keyframes. Oh yeah, look at that. You know, maybe you want to brighten up that that video or something like. See, the video is a little bit dull. What you can add, and I suggest that you play around with for your homework assignment, is using a post-processing volume. Just go to Place Actor and type in post-processing, and this will pop up. Drag this anywhere in your world, and we're going to want to scroll down in the details for it and set, where's that at? Set it, oh my gosh. I could just type it, there it is. You could just type it in the search. It's called Infinite Extent Unbound, which basically means affects everything and not just everything in the box. And I'm going to play around with the exposure and turn off auto exposure in Unreal. Auto exposure in Unreal is sort of like eye adaptation, where, you know, say you watched a movie in a dark theater and you come outside, you know, everything's really bright. Similar sort of auto exposure happens by default in Unreal, but it's really annoying with the stuff we're doing in this class, so you can turn it off in the post-processing volume by making the min and max values for exposure the same number, which might change your overall exposure in your world, so you might have to dial it in. See how I brighten everything up now? That looks okay on the video, but it doesn't look okay on the environment. So now I'm going to need to go to my directional light in my environment and lower that down. I guess that's okay. Maybe I'll make the light pink so it makes my clouds pink. Ooh, yeah. Look at that. Such aesthetic, right? Oh, 1 minute. I guess I just got to render. Beautiful. Not quite as good as when I spent hours and hours and days making it for the first time for MTV, but hey, 10 minutes, right? Not too bad. Render it out. JPEG, no, let's render out ProRes. Cool, no, not 444. That's good. Output is good. 1080p is fine. Accept. Render. Oh god, not again. I didn't save the map yet. I clicked record, right? Yeah, I did. What? Is that a bug? A plus. Amazing. Well, that's a stupid bug. This seems like a really easy bug to have. How is this not solved? I'm gonna write to Mr. Epic and get this fixed.
That's what book like these for.
All right, folks, we're upgrading. That's dumb. Look at that. Beautiful. You know, not the most effort that I've put into a project before, but I think you can start to see the foundation of what we're going to do in here, right? So, making your assignment, that's what I want you to think about. Foregrounds, backgrounds, cameras, camera movement, subject matter. Make a world that makes sense with your video. Putting the Unreal Engine logo in a weird environment doesn't really make that much sense. Putting her in a weird sky kind of makes a little bit more sense. It would make more sense if I had more time to work on it. But, this is the foundation of what we're working on. Any questions? No? Next week, we're going to talk about green screen and keying. If you have any green screen footage that you've ever shot before and you want to bring that in to mess with, you can. Otherwise, we'll work with this file, but with the green screen on it. Okay? Or other green screen files. Cool. Have a good week. Yo. Looks like you got beat because this person physically came up to the table instead of just yelling across the room. How embarrassing.
I was just gonna know, can you send me files I can start before class? Because I have a